My cheating wife told me before the wild night with her lover, "Honey, Chris is waiting outside. Come on, and I'll introduce you to him." Enraged, I said, "If he comes within 3 feet of this house, I'll break his jaw. And if you leave with him now, you'll never be welcome here again, and you'll pay for it forever." She decided to take the risk. To a luxury hotel, he handed her the keys to the ballet and led Amber into the lobby, which was opulent with marble floors and crystal chandeliers. Amber's heels clicking against the polished surface floor as they headed to the elevator in the elevator. Chris pulled her close, his hand resting on her waist. Amber's heart raced as the elevator ascended as they reached her floor. Chris led her to a suite at the end of the hall. The access card and door swung open to reveal a luxurious room with a king-sized bed furnishing and a panoramic view of the city. Chris wasted no time and poured them both a glass of champagne from the chilled bottle in a silver bucket, and they clinked glasses, and Amber took a sip, savoring the bubbles dancing on her tongue. Chris set his glass down and kissed her. Passionately, the outside world ceased to exist as they indulged in a wild and passionate evening. They ordered room service and enjoyed a splendid dinner in the privacy of their suite. The night was filled with laughter, whispered secrets, and stolen glances. For a moment, Amber forgot about Logan and the life she was risking. She reveled in the freedom and excitement Chris brought to her life as the night progressed. They moved into the bedroom. Moonlight streamed through the windows, casting a soft glow on their entwined bodies. Amber felt a mix of euphoria and guilt, but she pushed the latter aside, concentrating on the present. The hours passed, and they finally fell asleep, wrapped in each other's arms. But the excitement of the night was short-lived. Amber woke up to the harsh light of dawn seeping through the curtains. The reality of her actions began to sink in. Chris was still asleep with his arm draped over her. Amber carefully untangled herself and slid out of bed, walked to the window looking out at the city below her. Mind raced with thoughts of Logan and the life he had put in jeopardy. The house felt empty without Amber, but Logan knew he had to move on. He began gathering all of his belongings, methodically packing them into boxes: clothes, shoes, books, and personal items. Everything went in. He labeled each box with his name and stacked them carefully in the garage. The process was his sole focus on erasing her presence from Logan's life. He changed the locks on the front and back doors. He also blocked her number on her phone, making sure she couldn't reach him. The betrayal stung, but he was determined to take control of his life the next few days. Logan spent hours in his home office thinking about his next move. He wasn't going to let Amber get away with it. Revenge was on his mind, but it had to be done and precise. Logan made a list of everything he needed. What he needed to do at the top of the list was to contact his lawyer. Lucas picked up the phone and dialed Lucas's number. "I need to see you," Logan said. When Lucas answered, "It's urgent the next morning." Logan met Lucas in his office, and they sat across from each other, another meeting filing papers between them. "Tells me everything," Lucas said. Logan recounted the events of the past few weeks, detailing Amber's infidelity, her decision to leave with Chris. Lucas listened, taking notes and occasionally making questions when Logan finished. Lucas leaned back in his chair, considering the information we need to ensure that he doesn't get a single cent. Chris said firmly. Lucas nodded, understanding the gravity of Logan's determination. "We can gather proof of her infidelity. This will strengthen her case and ensure that she pays for her actions. I installed a surveillance system in the house. I have documented everything that Chris trusted." Lucas leaned forward with a serious expression on his face. "Well, we will need detailed evidence, photos, videos, any proof of her meetings with Chris, financial records. She has also been spending money on him." Logan felt a sense of grim satisfaction. The more evidence he gathered, the more determined he became to see this through. He wasn't just fighting for himself. He was fighting to ensure that Amber faced the consequences of her betrayal. Amber came back to the house a week after spending the fun time with her lover. Sure, she could smooth things over. She parked her car in the driveway and walked to the front door, expecting to see Logan inside. He found you with the doors closed. In silence, frustrated, she knocked on the door. "Logan, let me in." Logan appeared at the window. calm and serene. His face was expressionless. It revealed nothing. You made your decision. Amber, now live with it. Why did you come back more loser again? Amber's eyes opened. Please, Logan. I was wrong. Let me explain. Logan shook his head. There's nothing to explain. I've lost everything. Amber's frustration turned to desperation. She tried the door handle again, shaking it. Logan, please let me in. We can talk about this. Logan stepped away from the window and the heart came into view. Amber sank. She walked to the back of the house, hoping to find another way in every door. All the windows were locked. She knocked on the back door. Her knuckles turned red. Logan, please come inside. Logan looked at her through the security cameras. He felt a grim satisfaction at seeing her desperation, but he kept his expression neutral. He walked away from the door monitors and walked to his study, closing the door behind him. He had no intention of letting her back into his life. Amber circled the house looking for any sign of weakness. She found none. Exhausted, she dropped on the front steps with her back to the door. She tried to call Logan, but his number was blocked. She sent texts asking for a chance to explain herself, but there was no answer as the hours passed. Amber's desperation grew. She tried to call her friends, but he had already come. The voice over her infidelity. No one was willing to help, even her lover. She was alone in the reality of her situation. It began to seem like she had nowhere to go. Amber left the house and drove aimlessly through the city. Thought about going with Chris, but their last encounter had been cold. He had made it. Sure, he didn't want anything more to do with her once she was homeless. To offer her realization hit her hard that she had thrown away everything for nothing. That night, she walked back into the house hoping Logan had calmed down. She stood in the driveway, looking at the darkened windows. She tried knocking again, but there was no answer. Defeated, she turned to leave, but then she saw a note taped to the door. The note was short and to the point. Amber, your belongings are in the garage. Take them and go. My lawyer will send you the divorce papers. They met at the court, walked to the G and found the boxes neatly stacked just as Logan had left them. He opened one and gave her clothes, shoes, and personal items. It was all she had packed and ready for her to take her hard. Amber loaded the boxes into her car, tears streaming down her face, drove to a nearby motel. She checked in and took her belongings into the small, impersonal room. She sat on the bed surrounded by boxes and stared at the walls. The reality of her situation was undeniable. She had lost her home, her husband, and her dignity. The next morning, Amber called her lawyer. She needed advice on what to do next. The lawyer listened patiently and then explained to her that Logan had a strong case against her. The evidence of his infidelity was overwhelming. She had no grounds to contest the divorce or demand any settlement. Amber felt paralyzed when she hung up the phone. She had nothing left. No house, no money, no future. She spent the next few days moving from motel to motel, unable to find a permanent place to stay. She tried contacting old friends, but they had all heard of her betrayal and wanted nothing to do with her. A week later, Amber stood outside the house again. She looked at the closed doors, the silent windows. She had lost everything, and it was all her fault. And she walked away. Her footsteps echoed on the empty street. She had made her choice, and now she had to live with the consequences. The courtroom was bustling with activity when the divorce process began. Logan and Amber were sitting on opposite sides of the courtroom. Logan had his lawyer Lucas at his side. As Amber was joined by her legal team, the tension in the air was palpable as both sides prepared for confrontation. Lucas began by presenting Logan's case and lovingly presented surveillance footage of evidence of Amber's meetings with Chris, financial records documenting her spending on the affair, and text messages that confirmed the nature of her relationship with Chris. Each piece of evidence was displayed on large screens in the courtroom for all to see. The footage was shown first, and the courtroom fell silent as the video played, capturing Amber leaving the house at night as she met Chris in various places. The recordings were clear with timestamps and location data, reinforcing the narrative of her infidelity. From the judge, a stern-looking man with years of experience examined the evidence. Lucas carefully addressed the judge directly. Your Honor, this video clearly demonstrates that Amber violated the trust of her marriage. It shows that she was involved in a prolonged affair. It had significant consequences for my client. Amber's attorney attempted to counter the evidence by arguing that Logan's presentation was biased and aimed at tarnishing Amber's character. However, the counter-arguments lacked substance. In comparison to the exhaustive documentation provided by Logan, the judge listened, but remained unmoved. Focusing on the concrete evidence, Lucas then presented the financial records. He highlighted the transactions that indicated Amber's expenses on expensive dinners, hotel days, and gifts from. He provided a detailed analysis of these expenses, showing how they had been funded since the joint account. Logan's attorney also presented bank statements and credit card bills that demonstrated how Amber's spending on Chris had drained her finances. The judge examined these documents closely and noted the discrepancy between Amber's claims and the reality represented in the records. Amber took the stand to plead her case. She tried to explain her actions, arguing that her affair was a mistake that she was willing to make amends. Despite her attempts to appeal to the judge's sense of justice, her explanations were met with skepticism. The evidence against her was overwhelming, and her arguments lacked credibility. Lucas cross-examined Amber, asking her about the timing of her meetings with Chris and her financial transactions. Each question was pointed and aimed at dismantling her defense and highlighting the extent of her betrayal. As the hearings progressed, the judge remained focused on the facts. The evidence presented by Logan and Lucas was clear and methodical. Amber's attempts to argue or come forward were insufficient against the complete documentation of her infidelity. After several days of hearings, the judge made his decision and concluded that Amber's actions had breached the marriage contract and that she was not entitled to any financial settlement. Logan's meticulous preparation and the strength of the evidence had secured a decisive victory. Amber's legal team advised her on next steps, but the outcome was grim. She was left with nothing. Her claims of unfair treatment were overshadowed by the undeniable proof of her misconduct. The judge's ruling was final, and the financial and personal consequences. For Amber, they were severe. Meanwhile, Logan felt relieved that the battle had been exhausting, but his thorough preparation had paid off. He had achieved a favorable outcome, while Amber's betrayal received the consequences she deserved. The legal proceedings had been harsh, but were a necessary step in regaining control of his life as Logan and Lucas reviewed the case one last time and discussed the implications of the ruling and the steps necessary to finalize the divorce. Logan felt a sense of closure as he prepared to move on from the terrible experience. Amber walked out of the courtroom, and her future was uncertain. The battle had stripped her of everything she had ever taken for granted. She faced a challenging road ahead, marked by the repercussions of her actions and the finality of the decision. The doors to the courtroom slammed shut behind her, marking the end of a chapter in the legal battle for Logan. The victory was a crucial step in rebuilding his life, free from the shadows of betrayal and deception. With the legal battle behind him, Logan turned his attention to rebuilding his life. He had moved into a new house, strategically chosen to be away from the memories and shadows of his past. The new place was modern and spacious, with a clean slate that symbolized his new beginning. The house had an open-plan layout with large windows that let in plenty of natural light. Logan had the pleasure of setting up the space by carefully selecting furniture and decor that reflected his tastes and preferences. He spent his weekends working on various home improvement projects, from painting walls to organizing his extensive book collection and artwork. Each task was a way to mark his new beginning, creating a space that was completely his own. Logan also invested time in his hobbies. He had always loved woodworking, so he set up a small workshop in the garage. He spent hours crafting custom furniture and intricate wood designs. His creations, ranging from elegant coffee tables to intricate picture frames, became both a creative outlet and a source of satisfaction to his personal projects. Logan reconnected with friends and family. He hosted get-togethers and dinners to catch up with people he had lost touch with during his marriage. These interactions gave him a sense of normalcy and allowed him to rebuild the social connections he had had diminished over the years. She began hiking with old friends, exploring new trails, and enjoying the outdoors. Every outing was a reminder of the freedom and possibilities that awaited her. Logan also focused on her career, taking on new challenges and opportunities. She took professional development courses and networked within her industry. Her hard work and renewed energy paid off, resulting in a promotion and increased recognition at work. She enjoyed the new sense of accomplishment and the positive trajectory of her career. Meanwhile, Amber was facing a completely different reality. The excitement of her romance with Chris had quickly dissipated once she had to face the consequences. Chris had initially been enthusiastic about the romance. She showed no interest in a long-lasting relationship. As soon as the fling lost its charm, Chris distanced himself from Amber, leaving her without the support she had anticipated. Amber's financial situation deteriorated further. She struggled to find stable employment. Her reputation had been tarnished by the public nature of her affair. Her attempts to secure a new job were met with resistance and skepticism from potential employers. The job market proved challenging and her financial reserves dwindled as she faced mounting bills and expenses. The loss of her social circle was another blow. Friends who had once been close became distant and were unwilling to associate with her after the scandal. The isolation she experienced was palpable, as she found herself alone and without the support network she had taken for granted, desperate for stability. Amber moved into a small apartment in a less desirable part of town. The apartment was modest and had dated furniture and minimal amenities. It was a far cry from the life she had enjoyed before the affair, a stark reminder of her current situation. Despite her efforts to get closer to Logan, she received no response. Her attempts to contact him were ignored, leaving her with no chance of reconciliation. The legal battle had cut their ties completely, and Logan's decision to cut off communication was final. Amber's daily routine became monotonous. She spent her days looking for job opportunities, and her nights alone in her apartment. The thrill and excitement she had once experienced with Chris were replaced by the harsh reality of her situation. The freedom and allure of adventure quickly gave way to the harsh consequences of her actions. As time went on, the weight of her decision fell heavily on Amber. Her financial instability, her social isolation, and lack of direction became a daily struggle for her. She had hoped for a fresh start with Chris, but instead found herself dealing with the repercussions of her choices. The life she had imagined was now a dream, replaced by a reality marked by hardship and loneliness. Logan, on the other hand, continued to thrive in his new life. The ultimate revenge came not in any overt gestures, but in the quiet, unremitting success and satisfaction she found in rebuilding her life. The contrast between her renewed happiness and Amber's continued struggles. A testament to the consequences of her actions, Logan's focus remained on enjoying his freedom and moving on. Leaving behind the remnants of a tumultuous past, Amber sat on the worn couch alive. But his departure had left her with a feeling of emptiness. She had hoped for a fresh start with him, but it turned out to be a mirage. His absence was a constant reminder of the fleeting nature of her decisions. Amber found herself revisiting nature, the night with Chris on her mind. He had already fled the country she had believed would lead her to a new chapter in her life, filled with excitement and fulfillment, had instead marked the beginning of her downward spiral. The fleeting thrill of adventure had been replaced by Bannon, the cold reality of abandonment. Briss had disappeared when Amber was most needed, leaving her without the support she had anticipated. The sparse furnishings in the apartment did little to comfort her. She tried to decorate with a few personal touches, a few photos, a couple of small plants and inexpensive artwork. Still, nothing seemed to fill the void left by her former life. The contrast between her current surroundings and her past affluence was striking. Amber spent her evenings reflecting on the choices that led her here. She replayed conversations with Logan, her justification for the affair, and the moments when she had rationalized her actions. She realized how those decisions had led her to her current situation: the loss of her marriage, her financial stability, and her social connections. From time to time, she tried to reach out to friends from her past, but the responses were brusque or non-existent. She alienated those who had once been close and rebuild those relationships. It seemed unlikely that the isolation she faced was a direct consequence of the decisions she had made in her loneliness. Amber found herself questioning her decisions and their repercussions. The life she had imagined with Chris had never materialized, and reality was far from the thrill she had sought. The consequences of her actions were clearly evident in her diminished circumstances and the lack of support from those around her. Each day in her apartment served as a reminder of her decisions, as well as a lesson in her life. The consequences. Amber had hoped to escape her former life, but in doing so, she had created a new set of challenges and hardships. As she sat alone, she realized the magnitude of her regret for leaving Logan for indulging in the affair. The decisions she had made had been years since the tumultuous events that had marked the end of their marriage. Logan's initial aftermath of the divorce had been a period of adjustment, but Logan had used it as an opportunity to rebuild his life. He had moved into a new home and found solace in his hobbies and rebuilt his social and professional networks. Logan's new home was in a quiet neighborhood surrounded by lush greenery and well-maintained properties. The house itself had a modern design with an open layout and large windows that let in plenty of natural light. Logan had taken great care in making the space his own, from installing custom frames in the kitchen to creating a serene outdoor space with a small garden and comfortable patio. As time went on, Logan continued to focus on his interests. His woodworking skills had developed significantly, and he had even started a small business crafting custom furniture. His pieces. They gave him attention for quality and craftsmanship, and he enjoyed both the creative and entrepreneurial aspects of his work. Logan's social circle had expanded, and he had also reconnected with old friends and made new ones through various social events and community activities. He joined a local hiking club, participated in charity events, and became even more integrated into his community. The relationships he cultivated were genuine and based on mutual respect and trust. During this period of reconstruction, Logan met Lisa. She was a fellow hiking enthusiast and a successful graphic designer. Their relationship began as a friendship forged through shared interests and mutual respect. As they spent more time together, it became clear that their bond was deepening. Lisa understood her, supported her, and appreciated Logan for who he was. Their connection was based on genuine affection and shared values that contrasted with Logan's previous experiences. Logan and Lisa's relationship strengthened over time. They enjoyed traveling together, exploring new destinations, and indulging in their mutual love of the outdoors. They took weekend trips to scenic locations, hiking trails and charming small towns. Their weekends were filled with adventure and relaxation, providing a welcome contrast to Logan's past hardships, as well as his personal happiness. Logan's career continued to flourish, his woodworking business. She expanded and gained a reputation for excellence in her field, took on larger projects, and began collaborating with interior designers and architects, further establishing her presence in the industry. The success of her business was a testament to her resilience and ability to turn adversity into opportunity. Logan's past, including her experiences with Amber, became a distant memory. She had learned from those experiences and used them to shape her future. The lessons she had learned, confidence, respect, and self-worth, were integrated into her current life. The sense of vindication she felt came not from acts of retribution, but from living a full and content life. Amber, on the other hand, had taken a back seat. Her attempts to get closer to Logan, or regain a semblance of her previous life, were unsuccessful. The consequences of her actions had left her in a pose in which he struggled to rebuild his own life. His previous attempts at reconnecting had been met with silence and had largely become a distant memory in Logan's life. Logan found peace in the knowledge that life had moved on positively. He had taken control of his circumstances and emerged stronger. His revenge was complete, not through acts of cruelty, but through living well and finding happiness. Satisfaction came in knowing he had achieved a better life and put the past behind him to focus on the bright future he had created. As Logan looked to the future, he was content with the decisions he had made. His relationship with Lisa was one of mutual respect and love. His career was thriving, and his personal life was fulfilling the lessons of the past. It had led him to a place of balance and contentment. Logan's life had been transformed from a life of pain and betrayal, of one's achievements and joy signing. That moving forward was not only a possibility, but a reality that he had fully embraced.